Jake here for American Trucks, and today I'm taking a look at the Supreme Suspensions 2-inch front and rear Pro Billet Lift Kit for 2007 to 2018 Silverado 1500s. Now this kit is going to appeal to the Silverado owner who's looking to have it all with their lift kit. It's simple, it's high quality, and it's budget friendly enough to fit anyone's needs. So if you're looking for more clearance for larger wheels and tires, or if you just want a better stance for your truck, then this kit is going to have you covered. If you want to get more height out of your Silverado, whether that's for the look, the off-road capability, or just to get some larger wheels and tires fitted, this kit from Supreme Suspensions is going to give you just what you're looking for. Stock, this generation of Silverado had a lot of different wheel and tire options, but most of them tend to hover around the 31-inch tire range. Now with this kit, you can fit up to 33s without any rubbing issues. The 35s are going to be pushing it and would probably require some trimming. So I would recommend sticking with 33s for the sake of having options and not having to trim anything on your truck. Up front, you get a set of strut spacers that measure about 1¼ inches in actual height. Now it's important to remember that sometimes with suspension lifts, they are not going to be one-to-one, so the height of the spacer doesn't necessarily correlate to exactly how much lift you're going to get. It all has to do with suspension geometry, but these are going to give you 2 inches of lift in the front end of the truck. Now spacers, as you can see, aren't anything complicated, but due to what their function is, it's really important that they are done right. Supreme Suspensions CNC machines these out of a solid block of 6061 T6 aircraft grade aluminum, and then they finish everything off with this really nice black anodized coating. So these are going to be supremely strong and durable, and unlike polyurethane spacers, these aren't going to go soft, so they're not going to break down or lose their height over time. And the aluminum plus the anodized coating means that they're going to withstand the elements as well, so you're not going to run into issues with rust or corrosion. Plus, you get all new hardware to go with them. Out back, you have a traditional block style lift. Now these are one size all the way through, and they measure a true 2 inches in height. Centering posts up here, gonna make everything nice and easy to get it aligned. And these are super strong. Unlike a lot of other types of block style lift, these aren't welded, they aren't made of any type of steel, they're one solid piece. Now, Supreme Suspensions does say that these can withstand up to 60,000 pounds of force without deformation. And from picking it up, you can see that that's probably true. So it's safe to say that these are going to be able to withstand whatever you could possibly throw at them. You also get all new U-bolts to account for that added height, and these are finished in a black powder coat too. So not only are they going to match, but they're also going to be able to withstand the elements and not succumb to rust or corrosion. Plus, you get all new hardware for those too. Now pricing for this kit is going to come in at about $275. And that is on the expensive side for a spacer lift, but I really think that the quality here speaks for itself. You could, of course, get something that's less expensive, but it's not necessarily going to have the same quality finish or construction as this one. And for something that mounts in such a critical location, in my humble opinion, it's absolutely worth spending the extra money because you're not going to find a whole lot of spacer lifts that are like this. Now installation will come in at a 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty scale, and it should take you about 3 hours or so to complete. This is going to require moving some bits out of the wheel well, unbolting some things, dropping down those rear leaf springs and whatnot in order to gain access to the front struts and the blocks in the rear respectively. Overall, it is not a hard process, just something that's going to take you some time. And one reminder too is that once you've got everything bolted back together, you should plan on getting an alignment done on your truck because you are going to be changing around the suspension geometry. And to show you the install process now, let's throw it over to one of our AT customers.
Tool used to do Supreme Suspension 2-inch front, 2-inch rear lift, item number S106732. 22mm socket, 19mm socket, 18mm socket, 15mm socket, 10mm socket, 21mm wrench, 15mm wrench, 22mm wrench, 18mm wrench, 5/16 Allen, channel locks, 1/2-inch drive impact gun, a hammer, a pry bar, set of punches, 3/8 drive ratchet, 1/4-inch drive ratchet. To start the installation of the 2-inch front lift, you're going to start by taking off the caliper bracket and the caliper. And to do that, you're going to remove the 2 nuts in the back holding the caliper bracket on, and the 2 nuts holding the caliper to the bracket. To remove the caliper, you're going to use a 19. Put those nuts to the side. To remove the caliper itself, see if it's tight. You might need a pry bar to do this. Set this off to the side, and this is where your bungee is going to come in handy. Find a good spot to hang this up. Now take your 18 and remove the caliper bracket. Now would also be a good time to inspect your brake pads and your rotors. See if they need to be replaced while you have everything apart. Pull this off. Store this to the side. If you have brake cleaner handy, you can clean those up a little bit. Once you have that bracket off, you may or may not have a set screw right here. In my case, I do not. You can remove your rotor. Now would be a good time to inspect your rotor, see if it has grooves in it, if it needs to be replaced. If it does, I would suggest replacing it so that way you don't have a bumpy brake pedal. Once you have your rotor off, you're going to see 2 bolts holding on your ABS line. You're going to remove those. You'll see your 10mm here. And in the back on top of the upper control arm, you'll see another 10mm that removes this ABS line. That way when you drop your control arm, you don't have a lot of tension on it. And the rear one actually holds your rear brake line up here. So that way when that comes up, it doesn't pull on that rubber line. We're gonna remove this one. We're actually just gonna put the screw right back on the top. Easier to find later. Do the same with this upper one. Put it right back in place. That way it's not missing for later. After that, we're gonna remove the upper control arm nut, which is your 18mm wrench. And you're just gonna loosen this just a little bit, just so we have everything broken and ready to come off. Once that is loose, you can go down and loosen your tie rod nut. You take your 21mm wrench, and loosen this. Once you have that nice and loose, you take your 18mm socket, pull that right off. Now you take your hammer and you snap your tie rod connection. You'll see it start to pop up. There you go. And just so everyone knows, you're not smacking the tie rod itself, you're smacking your knuckle, and that'll cause that to break tension. Before you drop your upper control arm also, you'll see towards the back of the strut, you'll have your sway bar linkage. That's going to be your 15mm wrench and 15mm socket. Take that out, and that allows the complete assembly to drop down a little more, give you more room to get that strut out. Now you're going to remove the upper control arm nut completely, and that's going to go back to your 18. And this is where you might need a channel lock potentially to hold that in place, either that or a vice grip.
Sure it's still turned?
Now you take your pry bar, if the vice grip doesn't work, and see if that puts enough tension on that upper control arm to get the nut off. Now you're gonna smack the knuckle and it'll pop right out. Now we're gonna start with the top of the strut. And when you go to the top of the strut, you'll notice you have 18mm nuts up top. You're gonna loosen those. You see 3 of them, 2 in the back, 1 in the front. And then after we get those loose, we're gonna move to the bottom, and you'll see 2 more nuts on the bottom holding that in. So you'll see 1 right here in the front, and then 1 in the back on the left-hand side. Just has a little clip on that. You can take your pry bar and just pry up on that, and you'll see it start to come up. You just want to get that loose, and there you go. The 2 in the back might be easier to get from inside the engine bay. Once you have those 3 up top loosened, you're going to move down below, and you'll see 2 more on the bottom of the strut holding it to the lower control arm. Those are going to be your 15mm socket to remove those. So we're going to start off by getting these loose. These might be a little stiff to get off, only because they're at the bottom of your lower control arm. Once you have them loose, you can jump to the other one, make that loose. Start by taking these out, and once we get these all the way out, we're going to go up to the top and remove the 3 18s holding the top of the strut in. If you wanted to use an impact wrench on this, it would definitely speed up the process. I'm gonna put these off to the side once you get them out. This is all hardware that we're gonna end up reusing. I'm gonna use an impact wrench. And then, once you have those 2 out, we're going to go back up and we're going to remove the 3 18s now. Like I said previously, it might be easier to get those out from the engine bay for the 2 back ones using an extension and an 18mm socket. Once you have those 18s out, you'll see your strut will just slide right out with the lower control arm able to move up and down freely. And this is where we're going to start to mount the spacer right to the top of this. One thing that I did not mention in the video, but I did mention in the list of tools, is you're going to need a cutoff wheel once you put your spacer on top to remove excess thread from the original mounting studs. With your spacer in hand, you're going to take this so that way you have the larger holes facing towards the tops, and then you're gonna have the smaller holes facing towards the bottom. So that way you can get your 5/16 Allen through this and thread it in. And this is where you're gonna put your Loctite, so that way everything stays where it is after the install. You're gonna line up your holes. Make sure you find the right pattern. And as you see on the tops, you're gonna have the original mounting stud sticking through. What you're gonna do is take your cutoff wheel and you wanna cut these flush. And what I would recommend is taking your original nuts and thread it down, so that way when you cut off, it cleans up the grooves, so that way you don't have it stuck. So you're gonna use your 18 socket to put these down. Just make sure they're not cross-threaded. And as you'll see, these are sitting flush with the top of the spacer now. And that's what it should look like after using the cutoff wheel. Once you have them hand tightened, take your ratchet or impact gun, crank them down and make sure that they're fully tightened where they won't come loose. Now at this point, because you added the spacer on top, this is going to be a full 180-degree turn from when you originally took it out. And we're going to repeat the process and just reverse the steps to put everything back together. Alright, so at this point you're going to press down on your lower control arm. Not too much, keeping in mind that your CV joint's right here and you don't want to pop the joint. And then you're just going to line this up with the 3 holes up top. You want the 2 studs in the back and the single stud in the front. And if you have a helper, you can go up top and catch the 18s. And you're gonna reuse the old hardware for that. And on this point, you want to crank down the 2 rear 18s, leaving the front one a little loose. So that way you could still catch your 15s below and line everything up perfectly. So on the lower, when putting the 15mm bolts back in, you might need the assistance of a floor jack, because you'll see when you put this in, because the lower control arm, the angle is going to be off a little bit. So to match that angle back up perfectly so you don't end up cross-threading, use the floor jack right underneath the lower ball joint to straighten out your angle. Once you have those in, you can start tightening up those, and then you can move back up to the top through the engine bay and tighten up the other 3 18mm nuts. Now move up to the 18mm up top. Replace your clip that's holding the wire to the rear left nut. And now we're going to start putting the control arms back together. Now reassemble your upper control arm. You'll notice that we used the jack underneath the lower control arm to bring it up. That way you can get your upper ball joint back together. In this scenario, we're using a pry bar to bring it back down to put tension on it. That way the upper ball joint does not spin as we're reassembling. Once you have your upper control arm put together, you could replace your ABS bracket and start with putting your tie rod back together also. You'll see in the back left, we're replacing the sway bar bolt. That's your 15 millimeter again, putting that back together. Once we have that tight, we'll turn the wheel so that way we can get the tie rod in and continue our reassembly process. Good. Reinstalling the upper bracket for the ABS. That's going to be your 10 millimeter socket. Just make those snug. They don't need a lot of hold them in. They're very small and they will snap. I'm going to move to the ABS, holding to the knuckle. Just to double check yourself, don't do like we did. Make sure your ABS line is above your upper control arm, not below it. Once you reposition your ABS line the proper way, resecure the front 10 millimeter bolt to the knuckle and tighten that down, making it a little past hand tight, that way you don't snap them. Once your ABS line is in, now move to your tie rod end, line up your knuckle, that way it lines up nice, and that's your 21 millimeter to tighten that up. While doing this install, just go across, look at everything. We're going to end up greasing all of our joints, what we can, and once we're done with that, we're going to move back over to reinstalling our brakes. Now we're going to start the reinstall of the rotor, the caliper bracket, and the brake caliper. As stated previously in the video, inspect your rotor, inspect your brakes, see if they need to be replaced. In my case, they needed upgrades, and that is what we are doing. We're going to replace your two 18 millimeter bolts that hold the rear caliper bracket on. One below, one up top. You want to make sure that those are tight. When putting your caliper back on, especially if you changed out your brake pads to new ones, you're going to have to reset the pistons back into the caliper. You could do so by reusing the old brake pad and a C vice grip to press them back in. You could thread in by hand.
I always thread them in by hand.
Your 219 bolts holding the caliper to the caliper bracket. Once those are tight,
You're done.
the job is complete. Just go back over, double check everything, make sure everything is tight. Your tie rod, your upper control arm bolt, make sure your lower strut tower bolts are tight. Double check your 3 upper ones, make sure those are tight. You replace the wire harness that's hold to the upper one, and job is complete. Now for the driver's side, you just repeat this exact process, and it is the same steps. Nothing changes. All right, so now moving to the back to do the 2-inch lift on the rear.
You'll be removing this block, and you'll be replacing it with a new block.
To do so, you need to remove the 4 21mm nuts holding the U-bolts to the axle.
On our setup, we were able to loosen 3 out of the 4. You might have to cut these bolts to get them out. So we're going to cut one on the other side and drop these bolts out.
Before you do so, make sure you have your axle supported. And when you have your axle supported, you'll see that we have 2 blocks on both sides going directly to the frame of the truck. So the only thing dropping is the axle and not the whole truck itself.
This one we're going to cut.
Now for the last one, make sure you have eye protection on. And this one is going to be cut with the cutoff wheel. The bottom plate will be reused for the lift. That does not get discarded. Now once you have that removed, slowly lower your jack supporting your axle.
Plate comes out. Plate should fit in.
Pry bar.
You need a pry bar. If you're one person, you're going to need to remove the shock. We have 2 of us, so I was able to push down hard enough to get this block in. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough room. Once the block is in, you use the new U-bolts.
When you look at the block, you'll notice that there's a nipple on the bottom that goes towards the ground, and on the other side there's a hole. You'll see a nub on the bottom of the leaf spring that's supposed to sit center in that hole, and once you do this, you can jack the axle back up to hold tension, and now you reverse your process and add your plate back to it. What you need?
3.
Three washers. Now to hold tension on, you could raise the axle back up.
Now, you want to try to tighten these evenly, and after about a week of driving, We have to retighten these U-bolts. Because they tend to stretch. And then they'll loosen.
You'll notice that he's evenly distributing as much as he tightens from left to right, front to back. Before you tighten these, you'll notice a gap here. Don't worry about that. As you tighten the U-bolts down, that gap will close. As long as you have that top nub on the leaf spring center with the hole and the nipple on the actual block facing downwards into the hole in the axle, that gap will close itself up.
There's your 2-inch.
And there's your different sizes in the spacers.
Just remember to retighten these.
And remember to check back after a couple days of driving to retighten those U-bolts because they will stretch over the axle. All right, now we are on the passenger side to add the block in. And on our passenger side, the 4 nuts holding the U-bolts to the axle are completely frozen. So instead of wasting time trying to unfreeze them, we're going to cut the tops of the U-bolts, one on the inside of the axle and one on the outside of the axle for both sets of U-bolts. Remember, while doing this process, while cutting, put safety glasses on, as there's a lot of dust and clearly metal.
And use the shield for the cutoff wheel.
Now you could slowly lower your axle, slower than that. All right, so on our side, we don't have enough clearance. We're gonna have to remove the shock. All right, so to remove that shock is a 21 millimeter wrench on the back and a 21 millimeter socket. Now you could lower your jack stand and you'll see how freely that drops. And once again, you'll see the nipple facing down into the top of the axle.
There's a hole in the top.
There's a hole in the top and the little nub on top.
Jack.
Once it's lined up, you can raise the jack. Get the shock inside the perch.
Keep on going. Stop.
Line your hole up to replace the bolt inside the shock and reverse the process of removing it. Bevel the nuts and washers. Go. Now tighten up evenly, going from front to back and left and right. And before you're done, just remember to tighten your shock back into place.
And you're finished.
And that is the complete installation of a 2-inch lift around the whole truck. Now just reinstall your wheels and enjoy your lift.
That's going to do it for our review and install of the Supreme Suspensions 2-inch front and rear Pro Billet Lift Kit for 2007 to 2018 Silverado 1500s. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, for all things Silverado, be sure to keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.